Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Islam in Life with me, Raza Kazim. The fitrah of an individual is supposed to be the natural disposition of an individual where he or she is naturally inclined to submit to the will of Allah and thereby follow Islam. However, the majority of people in the world are not Muslims. In fact, the ones who are Muslims may well find the regulations of religion anything but something that they are naturally inclined towards. So have we lost the meaning of fitrah?
Islam is also called Deen al-Fitrah, the religion of human nature, because its laws and its teachings are in full harmony with the normal and the natural inclination of the human fitrah to believe in and submit to the Creator. The human's natural state encompasses an inclination towards that which is morally and spiritually pure, upright and wholesome. The system of guidance revealed by God is the fulfillment of the natural disposition of human beings. The fitrah finds comfort in Islam as naturally as a hand fits in a glove. However, without guidance, the fitrah is corruptible.
You know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you know your God, you know who created you, but maybe you could express differently. But inside you recognize Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you know that He created you.
The nature of man is weak. So there's some aspects who actually have no fitrah in their heart whatsoever, no aspect of deen, no aspect of a higher power whatsoever, and they believe that the human being is mighty, that the human being is the Lord. So this is where, you know, through man's corruption, that natural fitrah becomes corrupt. But I do believe that there's hope for everyone. We make dua for, you know, the whole of humanity. At the moment, the humanity is in a really bad state. So just make dua for the whole of humanity, that Allah Ta'ala guides us and puts us all on the right path, the path to Jannah, inshallah.
To address these and other issues, we have our esteemed guest, Professor Tariq Ramadan. Welcome to the program.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam. Have we lost the meaning of fitrah? What is fitrah?
I think that we have lost the meaning very often when we come to understand Islam as a set of only ahkam, rulings and prohibitions and obligations. Before this, there is something which is very important. And very often, unfortunately, when we are in the West, when we are dealing with Muslims even, we tend to forget that we need to start with the concept of human being. That's essential. And fitrah, it's very much at the center of our understanding of the concept of human being. What we have in the Quran, which is essential, is there is something which is universally in our intimate life for every human being. And fitrat Allah allati fatara an-nas alayha, we have it in the Quran. This is the fitrah on which and through which Allah created human beings. And the way it's understood here is two things. The first is that there is a spark in our heart which is coming from a ruh, which is coming from the spirit that Allah brought into our being as human being, in our body, and this is what we call in nafs. Here this spark, this light, is this natural attraction, natural disposition to look to for what? To look for the answer. Why am I here? So this is for us this natural attractions towards at-tawheed, the oneness of God, which is the answer to why we are here.
But the answer that you're saying that people are seeking, a lot of people would say that they're seeking this. They're not necessarily Muslim, or in fact may not even have a faith, might be atheists. So they're seeking that answer as well. So
yes,
why is it?
That's exactly the point. The point is that what we are all sharing is the same question. Why? The answers are not going to be the same depending on many, many things. So this light that we have in our heart, we have the light of the revelation coming, and this is why in the Quran we have Nurun ala Nur, light upon light. So the light of the revelation is coming to the light that you have, and this is your question is the light, and the answer is his light. And when you have this, you are at peace. But to get this is where you have what we have in Arabic, which is al-qalb al-salim, the heart in its natural state. What could happen to human beings? What could happen, and why you have some people rejecting, denying, and saying, no, this is not the truth, and saying there is no God. This is where it's very important, because al-kufr, as we have it in the Quran, al-kufr is very often saying, the people who don't believe in God or the disbeliever. No, that's not the right translation of kufr. Before being disbeliever or rejecting, there is something which is in kufr, is to cover. In fact, there is a spark in our heart, which is al-fitrah, this natural, and then you sometimes have your heart which is covered. Covered by what? When, for example, your heart, it's completely under the colonization of your desire. It's covered. Your attractions, and you have it in the Quran. زُيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ حُبُّ الشَّهَوَاتِ. This has been the word is attractive, and then as you are naturally attracted towards the one, the world is covering this natural attraction by being attracted by your own desire. And the first prison, the first cover is your own ego. Your own ego. This is what we have with the shaitan. أَنَا خَيْرٌ مِنْهُ. I am better than him, he said about human being. And this ana, this ego, is covering the natural state, the natural spark. So this is why you have people coming back to God, reconciling this spark with this light, and others having their heart covered. And this is, once again, we have it in the Quran, خَتَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَى قُلُوبِهِمْ. God sealed their heart, and so this is why they are denying the truth.
So in that sense, what you're saying is that the attraction towards the one is less powerful than the attraction of the other things that are perhaps getting in the way of that attraction.
I wouldn't say less powerful, but it needs our consciousness. It needs our effort. It needs our jihad. So this is why not everything which is natural is good, because naturally you can have your spark covered, your heart covered. So you have to struggle. So this is why the world is powerful if you forget God. The world is powerful if you forget yourself. This is why you have in the Quran, يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تكونوا كالذين نسوا الله فأنساهم أنفسهم. Oh, who you believe, don't be like those who forgot God, so God made them forget themselves. So there is a relationship where the world, it's powerful. The life here, your ego is very powerful. Your ego is very powerful on yourself. So you have to liberate yourself. So liberation is more powerful if you start with this consciousness. So the liberation process, everything in Islam is in the name of fitrah. Liberate yourself. Liberate yourself from your ego, liberate yourself from your selfishness, liberate yourself from power, liberate yourself from money, because you have the old idols, which is gods beside God, the only one. But you have new symbolic gods today, which is money and anything that is distracting and which has something in it, which is addiction. Addiction is the exact opposite of this fitrah. Fitrah is free yourself. Addiction is you are dependent on so many other things, but not God.
And you quoted from the Quran, and I want to perhaps look at how did the prophets deal with this notion of fitrah? How did they get this point across to the people of their time?
Yes, there is a very well-known hadith where he was saying all the human beings have been born according to the fitrah. It's only their parents that made them Christians or Jews and Zoroastrians at the time, which meant for some scholars that in fact fitrah, it's Islam. it's Islam. It's just this surrendering to God is exactly what Islam is all about. And you have lots of scholars saying, I would say now we have to define Islam, because there is the final revelation, Islam, and there is Islam that is crossing all the religions. For example, Abraham, when he is talking to Allah and Allah is talking to him, is saying, Aslim. وَإِذْ قَالَ لَهُ رَبُّهُ أَسْلِمْ. Allah is telling us, just come, enter into my peace. And say, Aslamtu li Rabbil Alameen. I surrender with all my heart. So there is Islam, which is this state where you acknowledge that there is one God, that you acknowledge that you need Him, and the only way for you to come back to the sound heart, إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. Those who are going to be saved are those who are going to come back to God with a sound heart, meaning the original state. Salim, it says, not distorted. So you have to come with this original spark that you are coming. And then all others are going to see their hearts covered with all what we were referring to. So this is why the Prophet, peace be upon him, was referring to the original state is this connection to God. And then you have parents and cultures and life directing you towards other directions, and all what you have to do in your life is to struggle. It's to deal with it through this jihad in nafs, to come back to the original spark, the original light, because it's with this light that you will get your peace. Nurun ala nur means when the two lights are reconciled, this is where you have as-salam. As-salam, this is peace. Salamatin nafs, this peaceful heart that is coming back to the original state.
And within that, how successful were the prophets in the past in terms of trying to make this actually happen, in terms of trying to get the people to understand this concept and say, okay, this is what you need to do?
There are many levels. The first level is, when you feel that you are doing right, when you are not lying, when you are speaking the truth, there is a state where you are at peace. And you don't need to be scholarly, articulate to get what we are talking about. This is natural. I say the truth, I speak the truth, I feel good. I'm consistent with my life. I have my principles. I'm doing my best to be consistent with. I am at peace. So you have levels. So for ordinary Muslims, this was something which was so important because it's very simple. It's the natural way. You don't need philosophy with this. You just need apply the principles. So there are levels. And then what is also coming from the very deep philosophical, mystical, and theological tradition is you have to go deeper. Why? Because at one point you are going to ask questions. What am I doing with the questions in my head, in my mind, that are troubling myself, that I cannot get this? So what is the relationship between this very natural light and my thoughts that are troubling my mind? This is where you have scholars dealing with this and following in the footsteps and coming with very much more sophisticated answers to sophisticated questions. So the answer to this is, you know what? You have to look at yourself. You have to consider your own path, your own way, and try at your level to ask yourself, what is going to bring me peace? With my heart, with my mind, with my body. So this search, this looking for peace is the essential dimension of understanding what Fitrah is all about. Fitrah is about be at peace with yourself, be at peace with your mind, be at peace with your body, and we don't have the same level of requirements to get that peace. It depends the way we think, the way we live, and the way we are, our hope even, the way we are hoping for getting it.
We like to make this show as interactive as possible and value your comments. Here is what you have said this week.
This week we asked, how is Islam Deen al-Fitrah? Issa from Germany said, Islam is in complete harmony with the human nature, and this harmony is called Fitrah, hence Islam termed as Deen al-Fitrah. And Abdul from Uganda said, the whole concept of an Islamic life is to harmonize a human being to his own needs. And this is why we say Islam is Deen al-Fitrah, as it leads you to what is natural to a human being. And that's all the comments we have for this week. If you'd like to have your comments featured on the show, be sure to follow us on Facebook or join us on Twitter.
You were talking about this idea that people are naturally kind of have to work at it. But also there is this issue around being naturally inclined towards it. How are the two reconciled? Because if you have to work towards it, there is this question mark that stays that how can you say that it's that? Because one of the arguments that is made about Islam being, the Deen of Fitrah, it's hard work. It's not easy. So how can someone be naturally inclined to it? Anyone who sees that concept is going to be troubled by it.
That's a good question, because really it's Deen al-Fitrah. It's the religion's the path of this natural state. But our natural state, this is what we all have to acknowledge. It starts with this. You have, so many poets who were talking about this. So many philosophers, so many religions are talking about what? The starting point of our life. Even though it's a natural attraction. In this natural attraction, there are things that are interfering. Our own ego. So there is this natural attraction and there is natural interferences. What are these interferences? Where do they come from? And this is why we need to look at our own self. And we have it in the Quran. وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ حَبَّبَ إِلَيْكُمُ الْإِيمَانِ. God made you love this faith. When you are full of truth and sincerity, you love it. وَزَيَّنَهُ فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ. He made it beautiful in your heart, so you are attracted. This is the natural thing. But at the same time, you are attracted by your own ego, by your own desires, so you are in tension. So the natural state is not the easy path. The natural state is the tensions that you have between, I want the truth, I'm attracted by the wrong. I want the good, and I'm still attracted by the bad. I want the right, and the devil is still there. What should I do now? The struggle. The struggle is, in order to keep the natural attraction, I have to resist the bad attractions. So this is exactly the point. الأمر بالمعروف والنهي عن المنكر. So it's so at the end, and this is why people are saying jihad is about war. No, jihad is about getting peace, but to deal with our tensions. And the first is start with our own self. I want to liberate myself from my ego to come close to God, and still the ego is there. So this tension. I want the good, and still I have to deal with the bad. This is life, and no one said it's going to be easy. And this is why, at the end, we all know that if we have to come back to ourselves, if only we were alone and were able to do what in Islam is called al-muraqabah, which is the surveillance of your own monitoring and self-monitoring, we all know that we are full of things that are better to be hidden from the people. So this is where we need to be to get this deep hope that He's going to become close to us as much as we are trying to come close to Him, that He's going to forgive us, that His mercy is beyond His justice, because if He is only just with ourselves, it's going to be very difficult for every one of us. So there is something with this fitrah, which is a deep understanding of humility and the need for Him. The need for Him. I am in need for Him as to my answers, as to my personal struggle, and as to being successful with this spiritual path.
And with this, trying to resonate with that frequency, if you like, how can we go towards that? How does an individual, how does a Muslim go towards that and overcome these kind of things? One, at an individual level, And two, at a societal level, because a lot of these things that you're talking about are about how society has framed things to make them more attractive than that resonance with the Almighty.
Yeah, I think that once again these are critical questions, because very often we are presenting Islam and the Islamic teachings, you know, it's the same for all of us. And in fact, the starting point individually, it's not this. What we need to teach to our young brothers and sisters in Islam, and our kids even, is to be able to look at themselves. The starting point is look at your own self and know that you have lots of qualities that are here, and you have to thank God for these qualities. And you have weaknesses, and your weaknesses are not my weaknesses. You might have a problem with generosity, I might be generous, but I might have a problem with anger, and you don't. We have to start with our own self. So it's a very thing, it's just look at your quality. What do you have? Some might not be very deep in the way they think, but they are very deep in the way they give. So you take from your qualities to deal with your weaknesses. But it means that it's a personal assessment, and we need to go for that. This is where to come close to Allah is come close to your heart. Meditate on your heart. It's the way you are going to meditate on God. And this is where we are too much coming to the, you know, the basic common rules and rulings. This is haram and this is halal. That's fine, we know this and we have to keep this. This is very important, but not at the price of me looking at the mirror of my heart, at the mirror of what He gave me to succeed, and He gave me that I have to resist, and this is the way I have been created. And then with this, if you understand this, you enter into the community with something which is both, which is our personal journey. I need to know when I go to the mosque that we are all together, but I am alone. So this accountability, it's important. And when you know that you are alone and you look at yourself and you understand how much you have to improve, you, by being much more aware of your own self, you are less judgmental of others. So this is what we need in our community. But you can understand here that we need a very deep reform in our education as Muslims to understand that this is the very meaning of everything, because if not, it's not a community of brothers and sisters. We speak about brotherhood, we speak about sisterhood, but we are not experiencing it because we are not coming to the very essence of what Fitrah is, what this searching for His presence and His closeness is. This is the final understanding, the ultimate goal of our spiritual journey.
And in terms of this sociological context, the social context, if you like, what responsibilities does the environment have towards helping the individual achieve this fitrah? Because you want everyone to be doing it, and if everyone's doing it, that makes the whole journey a lot easier. If people are, you know, like you've said, coming from different angles, because they have different strengths, different things that they're bringing, that they are good at. So how can you get that?
Yeah, but that's exactly the point that you are making. There is a great deal of responsibility of this from the surrounding society when it comes to, you know, if I have to struggle with these attractions and desires, give me a safe environment. And this is coming from our institutions, our schools. First, give me the means. And to educate somebody is to give him or her the means to be autonomous. So give me this. This is my right. In fact, any Muslim majority countries, any Muslim community which is not giving to everyone the means to resist, the means to come back to the fitrah, is acting against the human rights. This is my right, so you have to give me this. Add to this, give me a safe environment where I have to be also aware of poverty and people in need and social justice. But I also have to have some morality. Morality is so a safe environment. You can't just say, you know what, you are free and you are going to resist. No, if everything around me, it's based on attracting my ego, attracting my desires, and then you want me to be a good person, no, there is a collective responsibility to protect the individual journey. And this is where we have an ethical responsibility when it comes to our environment. So you can't disconnect the individual journey from the collective responsibility to have a safe environment and helping through education, through social justice. And this is where there is, get it right. You can't in Islam separate praying with the one from zakat, thinking of others. You can't, and this is something which is essential when it comes to fitrah as the natural state that we have to protect.
We've touched on and talked about fitrah, and it's contained within each individual and perhaps refers to the natural resonance that one has to the frequency that is perfect for us individually in resonating with Allah. It is precisely when the individual Muslim is out of phase with that frequency that connected us to Allah when we lose that inner peace. The challenge is to recognize when, as a Muslim, one is performing the frequency which allows our fitrah to excel. The time is up for today's topic. I would like to thank Professor Tariq Ramadan for his views on this topic, and of course all of you at home for watching. Goodbye until the next time and another edition of Islam in Life.